switched over to the computer. This is Karen Ackerson and her daughter.
Okay. Okay. Hear you fine. Hear you fine.
Great. Okay. Go and mute.
Okay. Tonight we have the City Council meeting, our regular July 13th meeting, the first one of the month, hopefully, and maybe the last one. So I'll note the opening of the regular meeting, and Cindy, would you call the roll to determine if we have a quorum?
Scott Fry,
Yes.
Troy Patton,
Yes.
Mike Johns,
Yes.
Cindy Spalgeric,
Here.
Joe Edwards,
Here.
Jake Gilbert,
Here.
Scott Willis.
Here.
We do have a quorum.
Okay. Well, the first item of business is the approval of the minutes, looking at the minutes and with hope for approval for our June 22nd meeting. You've all been sent copies of the minutes. Is there a motion to approve?
This is Scott Willis, so moved.
Motion to second. Jake Gilbert, second. Okay. Motion properly made and seconded. You better call the roll, Cindy, I suppose.
You could do voice vote on the approval of minutes and the claims if you want.
Okay. All right. Is there any discussion on the claims? If not, do we have approval? If you approve, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Is there disapproval? Hearing none, Cindy, I'd say they passed. The next item are the claims that were put up for tonight. You all received those claims from Cindy or from the clerk's office. So I would entertain a motion on the claims.
So moved. Cindy Spalgeric.
Is there a second?
Mike Johns, I second.
Okay, motion properly made and seconded. Can we do this by acclamation? All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
And if is there any disapproval? Hearing none, I deem the claims have passed. Okay, there's no miscellaneous business or special presentations tonight. The old business, the first order of old business, it's ordinance 20-08, Wheeler Landing PUD Amendment 3. And this is going to be explained by Caleb Ernest. So Caleb, are you there?
Yep. Good evening, Council. For the record, Caleb Ernest with the Community Development Department. The item presented before you tonight is an amendment to the Wheeler Landing Planned Unit Development District. This area addressed by the amendment is approximately 2.3 acres and is currently zoned the Wheeler Landing PUD District. The area is located at the northwest corner of Wheeler Road and State Road 32. The PUD amendment proposes modifying the State Highway 32 Overlay District and development standards as further described in the staff report. This item was introduced at the February 10th City Council meeting. This item received a public hearing at the March 2nd Plan Commission meeting. Since that meeting, staff has received no public comments. Also, since that meeting, the petitioner has submitted revisions in response to both Plan Commission member and staff comments. The petitioner has provided responses to the issue list, which is Exhibit 10, and those responses can be reviewed in Exhibit 11. Further, the city engineer has included comments about the proposed site layout for the project in Exhibit 12. Lastly, the applicant has provided a letter addressing the parking proposed for the west side of the site. This item received a favorable 7-2 recommendation to the City Council at the July 6th Plan Commission meeting and is before you tonight for approval consideration. Nick Churchill, representing the project, is here to present details, and other representatives of the project are here as well to answer any questions you may have. If the council has any questions for staff, I am available. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Churchill, would you like to say anything?
Yes, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. For the record, my name is Nick Churchill. I'm here tonight on behalf of Wheeler Landing. I just wanted to take the opportunity to thank the staff, the Plan Commission, and the council for all their time and effort to make what was a good project even better. I think it's a testament to how the process can work. And I want to thank everyone involved. So I'll be here if you have any further questions. I know that many of you were able to participate in the APC meeting and you got to see the detailed presentation. If there are any questions related to that or any other topic, I'm available to answer those at your convenience. Thank you again and have a great evening.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Churchill. Before we start discussion on this, I would entertain a motion on ordinance 20-08, Wheeler Landing PUD Amendment 3. This is Portillo's, as I understand it. Is there a motion?
This is Scott Willis. I make a motion to approve that PUD, please.
Okay, is there a second to that motion?
This is Mike Johns. I second the motion.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Okay, now that the motion's been made and seconded, it's open for consideration. Does anybody have anything they wish to say about this before we vote?
This is Scott Willis. I'll make just a quick comment. I really appreciate the effort that the Wheeler Landing Group has put into this project. It's come a long way since introduction. They've made numerous dozens and dozens of changes to try to accommodate our requirements and wishes. It's definitely a better project. I appreciate APC for the detail and the time they've invested into this process, and I'm excited to partake of my first hot dog and beer on the next year. And that is all.
Okay, does anybody else wish to say anything?
Yeah, this is Mike Johns. As you know, this was a really difficult project. The placement of the building on the property was unique. We struggled with the APC. We went back and forth as to how that building should be placed. In the end, and with the support and recommendation of the city planners, we place it as is located, really with the face of it toward Wheeler Road, with the realization that their property really abuts 3 different streets. And but I'd like to thank the people from Portillo's who really came through and upped their game. I think the initial plan had maybe 34% masonry. We're looking at a project now that has 56% masonry in a really unique style of a building. I think it'll be an asset to our community, and I think everyone's going to enjoy the Portobello hot dogs and the chocolate cake. So,
okay. Anybody else have any comments?
This is Jake Gilbert. I was never really able to get behind the orientation of this building and some of the materials, but in particular the orientation. But that doesn't mean I'm not very grateful to the petitioner for the changes made, and for Nick and his crew and the city and all the things they did to bring this together. So just wanted to say that we're very fortunate to have Portillo's, and I understand that and recognize that. And just thanks everyone for the hard work on the project.
Okay. Well, I think we're ready for the vote. Cindy, will you call the roll?
Troy Patton,
Yes.
Scott Fry,
Yes.
Mike Johns,
yes.
Cindy Spalgeric,
Yes.
Joe Edwards,
Yes.
Jake Gilbert,
No.
Scott Willis.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries 6-1.
Okay, thank you for that. Our next item of old business is Resolution 20-124, which is the fiscal plan for ordinance 20-20 Chatham Hills Phase 19. Pam, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay.
This is
Go
Pam
ahead.
Howard with the Community Development Department. Before you this evening, we have a 100% voluntary annexation along with the associated fiscal plan for approximately 80 acres to be part of the Chatham Hills subdivision. This site is located on the south side of 206th Street and west side of Horton Road. As shown in Table 5, the estimated net impact for this phase of annexation is just over $29,000 over the next 5 years. The public hearing for this item was held on June 8th, and it is eligible for your adoption consideration this evening. I do have the petitioners here. They do not plan to present, but are available for questions if you have any. Thank you.
Okay.
Is the screen blank or for everyone, or is that?
I have a table on here, the table 5 that Pam mentioned on mine.
Yes.
My screen is blank. I just see a white box. Yeah.
Well, take Pam's word that the net
Okay.
in the 5th year is 29,313. Am I seeing that right, Pam?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Yeah, it's on there, and we are ahead of the game at the end of the 5th year on that. So
The 5th year is 24,060.
well, yeah, but
29,350.
okay, yeah, you're right, Scott. I'm sorry. Okay. All right, we've got a resolution before us, 20-124. Is there a motion to consider this resolution?
This is Troy
Gilbert,
Patton.
so moved.
Go ahead.
Sorry, Jake Gilbert, so moved.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second. Troy Patton.
Okay. Troy? Okay, now, is there any further discussion on this? Okay, Cindy, a call for the vote.
Scott Willis,
Yes.
Cindy Spalgeric,
Yes.
Troy Patton,
Yes.
Scott Fry,
Yes.
Joe Edwards,
Yes.
Jake Gilbert,
Yes.
Mike Johns.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Okay, that's the resolution and the fiscal plan for Chatham Hills Phase 19. Now, we have the ordinance for the 20-20, 100% voluntary annexation of Chatham Hills Phase 19. It was introduced to the council on June 8th. There was a public hearing on June 8th. And it is up for adoption consideration tonight. Is there a motion on ordinance 20-20?
So moved. Cindy Spalgeric.
Is there a second?
Scott Fry, I'll second it.
Okay, motion properly made and seconded. Is there further discussion on this? If not, Cindy, will you call the roll?
Scott Willis,
Yes.
Jake Gilbert,
Yes.
Joe Edwards,
Yes.
Troy Patton, Did we lose him?
I don't know. Continue on with the roll, we'll come back.
Mike Johns,
Yes.
Scott Fry,
Yes.
Cindy Spalgeric,
Yes.
Troy Patton. Well,
I think it's a technical difficulty. He's showing as being on, but his mic is not working.
right now we'll do it as 6-0. I'm sorry?
It's passed anyhow, but
Right.
even if Troy would vote against it, but I doubt that he would, but I don't know.
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
Okay.
Chris, can you ping him again, see if he's there?
Looks like he rejoined and he's just muted right now, so.
Okay, all right. But we'll go on to the next item then is new business. It's ordinance 20-125. 20-24, 20-24, excuse me.
Joe?
Voluntary,
No.
yes.
No, I think one.
2022.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. I got ahead of myself. That's not the first time I've done that either. I don't know. Okay. Ordinance 20-22, Grassy Branch, this is old business, Marketplace, PUD Amendment 1. Dane?
Good evening, council. For the record, Dane Crabtree with the Community Development Department. The item before you this evening is Amendment 1 of the Grassy Branch Marketplace PUD, which is located at the northeast corner of State Road 32 and Grassy Branch Road. The proposed amendment is specific to Lot 3 and involves modifications mainly to building materials for the outside storage and display standards for that lot. This item was introduced at the June 8th City Council meeting and received both a public hearing and unanimous favorable recommendation at the July 6th Plan Commission meeting. As such, this item is available for adoption consideration this evening. Justin Olashuk with American Structure Point is available if there are questions of the petitioner, and I am available if there are questions of staff. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dane. Do I have a motion on the Grassy Branch Marketplace PUD?
Move to approve. Mike Johns.
Okay, Mike. Is there a second?
Second, Cindy Spoljarek.
Okay, Cindy. Now we can have discussion. Is there any discussion on this ordinance 20-22?
I believe that there was a gentleman who lived across the street who had a concern about this. Is that true or not? Was that this from the APC meeting?
I believe that's correct, Jake. I wasn't at that meeting though, but if Justin, I know you can remember that one.
Dane, he had asked about just lights shining into his home, and we kind of tried to find the address and some things. I just didn't know if there was any more information on that. That's all.
Okay. Any other comments? I think we're ready for a vote then. Cindy, would you call the roll?
Troy Patton? Okay. Scott Fry?
Yes.
Mike Johns?
Yes.
Cindy Spoljarek?
Yes.
Joe Edwards?
Yes.
Jake Gilbert?
Yes.
Scott Willis?
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0.
Okay. Is that Troy?
Yeah.
Okay. Now we go to new business. This is ordinance 20-24. It is voluntary annexation of 18-326 and 18-342 Spring Mill Road. And Pam, do you want to explain this?
Yes, I can provide a brief introduction. Again, this is Pam Howard with the Community Development Department. Before you this evening for a public hearing, we have a proposed 100% voluntary annexation of 35 acres located at 18326 and 18342 Spring Mill. This is eligible for a public hearing tonight. It was properly noticed and advertised and would be back in front of you in August along with the associated fiscal plan. The petitioner Noah Herron is here. He does not plan to present, but is available for questions, as am I if you have any of the department. Thank you.
Okay. This item calls for a public hearing tonight, so I will open the public hearing at 7:18. Is there anybody on board who wishes to speak to this publicly?
This is Kevin. Mr. President, we have not received any emails about this one.
Okay, all right. All right, well, I declare the public hearing over at 7:19, since we have nobody online to do that. So this is simply an introduction, and it will go before the Plan Commission and be ready for adoption or be ready for consideration on August the 10th. So,
Joe, this is Pam Howard. This is an annexation, so it does not go to the Plan Commission.
it does not go, okay,
no.
I'm sorry. There's no plan, he's not planning any changes. Is this what you're saying?
This is just for an annexation, so
Okay.
that this is not zoning related.
Okay, all righty. So we won't have any Plan Commission. Okay, I think we're ready to go to ordinance 20-25, North Point 2 PUD.
Hey, Joe,
This
this
is
is
a-
Scott Willis. Sorry to interrupt. I'm hearing a lot of excess noise. I'm having a little hard time hearing. Can we just make a note to everybody to mute their mics? if they're not
Yeah.
speaking, so we can get a little quieter on the call.
I don't know where that noise is coming from, but it stopped, so maybe we got it. Okay. This is a council introduction, so Pam, do you want to speak to this?
Yes, I can speak to this. Again, Pam Howard with Community Development. Before you this evening for an introduction, we have a proposed new PUD district to be known as North Point 2 PUD. This 180-acre site is located on the north side of State Road 38 between Anthony Road and Hinkle Road and is currently zoned AGSF1. It is northeast of and adjacent to the existing North Point PUD. The proposed ordinance accommodates an expansion of the existing North Point Commercial Park. I do have Russell Brown here on behalf of the petitioner who would like to make a brief presentation, after which both he and I will be available for questions. Thank you.
Okay.
Good evening, members of the council. For the record, my name is Russell Brown. I'm an attorney with the law firm of Clark, Quinn, Moses, Scott & Grahn. Business address 320 North Meridian Street, Suite 1100 in Indianapolis. I do represent the North Point owners, which is the current group marketing and developing the 400 acres of the original North Point PUD. The proposal for introduction tonight, as Pam mentioned, is an approximately 183 acres, plus or minus, of State Road 38. They're shown there on the concept plan before you. In addition to rezoning, this would require an annexation. The site is owned currently by 3 owners and was previously, as many of you know, considered by the township for an expanded park area. If approved, this area would add acreage for large-scale commercial and distribution uses. The use table and development standards proposed are consistent with Commerce Park Districts 2 and District 3 of the North Point ordinance currently in existence. We do have in the current ordinance introduced tonight before additional buffering to the residential uses located on the western boundary. It's the developer's belief and petitioner's belief that this is a logical location from an assemblage and road infrastructure location for the expansion of these types of uses. This expansion would allow Westfield to make bids for large-scale developments that there is no room for in the existing North Point area. That's largely due to the success the North Point has shown that there is no compatible uses or usability for those large-scale uses. We understand as a development team that moving the city north of State Road 38 for non-residential users is a different vision than some have historically had for this area. So we anticipate that we'll have more than one additional public conversation necessary before coming to the Plan Commission. So as shown on your agenda tonight, this is not coming to the August Plan Commission, but we plan to move forward to the September Plan Commission. We do plan to have several public meetings, and we'll be happy to notify members of the council when those are scheduled. I know that there are other members of the development team on the line tonight if there's questions. Otherwise, we look forward to working with you through this process.
Okay. This is simply introduction tonight. It will go to the September Plan Commission, and it would be, if they pass it through, it will be for our adoption consideration on October the 12th. So thank you. We appreciate you coming before us. Okay, the next item of business is the East Street Construction Inspection Contract, and I think Jonathan Nail is going to explain that. So Jonathan, are you there?
I'm here.
Thank you.
So for the record, John Nail, City Engineer, City of Westfield. The contract in front of you is for construction inspection services on the East Street project. As you may well know, the East Street project is a new alignment roadway from 196th Street up to State Road 38. I mentioned it in the June Board of Public Works meeting, but we had a bid opening on this construction contract on July 8th. I'm happy to report that we had a very successful bid. We had 5 contractors bid on it. Their engineer's estimate for the construction was a little over $8 million, and we had an apparent low bidder of $7.2 million. So that is an $800,000 savings, which is always good to see when you open a bid. The East Street project is an 80-20 federal match. We were originally awarded $6.7 million from the MPO for this project. Because we had such a successful bid, that 80% total is only $5.76 million. And the contract in front of you is for construction inspection services for $499,970. Just to provide some context, for a project this size, we'd normally anticipate a construction inspection contract to be about $1 million in cost. The reason we were able to negotiate this is because we have a very competent inspection staff here at the City of Westfield. And I want to give a shout out to those guys who do an excellent job for us every day. We RFP'd this construction per the NDOT guidelines. We had 8 letters of interest from various consulting firms for the inspection services, and we had a team of 3 scorers who scored each of these letters of interest and selected Lockmiller Group for the project. So this is a contract with Lockmiller Group for $499,970. The last thing I want to note is that because we had such a successful bid under the awarded amount, we have asked the MPO to provide an 80-20 match for this inspection as well, and they have agreed to do so. So this contract is for $499,970, of which 80% is going to be covered by the MPO. So the cost to the city is only around $100,000 for the actual inspection. Wow. So that's all to say that we'd expect to pay about $1 million because of the successful bid and our past success on inspection with the MPO. They had $900,000 of this contract. So with that said, I'd request that you guys approve and sign this contract with Lockmiller Group for construction inspection services on East Street. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Okay. Any questions? Do we need to vote on this, or is it just, how do we handle this, Brian?
Well, that's the requirement that you've requested for these kind of projects. I think you either wanted to know about them or wanted to vote on them, so it's here, you may as well vote.
Yeah. Okay. Are there any questions for Jonathan on this from the council?
Nice job, John.
It's good. This is going to really open up the east side for whatever may happen, not only down towards 32, but up towards 38 and beyond possibly. So, okay, is there a motion that we approve this contract?
Troy Patton, so moved.
Is there a second?
Scott Fry, I'll second it.
Okay. All right, Cindy, would you call the roll?
Cindy Spalgeric,
Yes.
Troy Patton,
Yes.
Joe Edwards,
Yes.
Scott Willis,
Yes.
Scott Fry,
Yes.
Jake Gilbert,
Yes.
Mike John. Mike Johns. Now we've lost
Yes.
Mike.
Yes.
Okay. All right, motion carries 7-0.
Okay, thank you. Now we're going into a couple of ordinances that have been introduced, are being introduced tonight. The first one is Ordinance 20-26, and it's titled transparency related to campaign contributions. It's introduced by Scott Fry. My intent for these is that they would be introduced tonight and left to lay on the table with comments from interested people, one way or the other, and that we would have not a public hearing, but as Brian says, a public consideration at our August the 10th meeting before we vote. I think it's necessary that we hear the public's will on these things somehow, and I'm not certain that we are getting as much feedback through the virtual meetings as we would through eye-to-eye meetings. But be that as it may, I want as much feedback as we can get on this. So having said that, Scott, do you want to explain the ordinance?
Sure, absolutely. So this ordinance, Joe, first of all, thanks for the opportunity to give a brief overview of this. The idea of this ordinance is that it provides a guideline for which city council members moving forward would recuse themselves from any vote that takes place for any project that's brought before council based upon receiving campaign contributions above a certain limit. So what would happen in that scenario is the council member would recuse themselves from the vote, and also it has a section in here where it prevents the council member from accepting contributions to their campaign 12 months within the first 12 months after a vote from that contributor as well.
Okay. The ordinance is open for public inspection. I would ask that we hold this over, or as they say, leave it lay on the table for 30 days or approximately 30 days until we have our August the 10th meeting. At that time, I'd like to have, I don't want to say testimony, but I'd like to receive public comments on this ordinance so that we're clear that we have the will of the people and the will of the council correctly reflected in this. And so I think it's necessary that we leave it lay a little bit on the table until people can inspect it, think about it, and come back with recommendations if they have some or what have you. It's just, I think that's just a thing that we need to do in this republic. Okay, that's properly introduced. That's ordinance 20-26. Now the next one, I've already got quite a few comments on, but I'm going to handle it the same way. At the conclusion of the meeting tonight, I'm going to entertain public comments on three things. I'm going to entertain public comments if there are any. We've had a lot of discussion about golf carts. I don't know that we really have a kind of a plan, a golf cart plan, but I don't know that we have a golf cart ordinance, and there seems to be people are pretty evenly divided on the necessary or the unnecessary on this. So I want to hear from the public, and tonight I'm going to entertain that. I'm going to entertain comments on ordinance 20-26 if there is any, and also on ordinance 20-27. This is an introduction amending plan unit development ordinances, and I expect there will be quite a bit of discussion on this. So Scott, would you explain this ordinance?
Sure. Thanks again, Joe. I'll just give once again a very brief overview of this ordinance. Essentially what this does is it requires any new PUD moving forward would have built into it an automatic expiration date, that expiration date of 3 years. That expiration date can be extended with council approval. That said, in section 2, we outline that any current PUD that is out there that was approved less than 7 years ago would fall into this category where they would have, again, a 3-year expiration for construction.
Okay. This ordinance, I'm going to do the same way with this. I'm going to leave it lay on the table until August the 10th, at which time we will receive public comment, both spoken and written, on both of these ordinances, I think is necessary. And I know we're going to get plenty of comments on this one. I've already received quite a bit today. So, but we're not going to vote on it today. This is just an introduction to this ordinance. We really need to put our thinking caps on this one, and we've got a developer community that we need to support, but yet we need to make sure that they are doing things properly. And I know things intervene. We have economic turndowns and things like that. And I guess we just have to allow for some of them, but we need to really think about how this impacts both sides of this issue. And I think a month will give us time to receive public comments and to entertain those comments, think about them. There are a myriad of situations that could come from this ordinance. And so I think we have to be careful that we're not harming the developer community, but also that we're not harming the people who live here by doing something inadvertent. So these will lay on the table until August, at least August the 10th, and perhaps longer if we don't receive a lot of comments. We just need to make sure we have fully vetted both of these ordinances.
Hey, Joe, this is Scott Willis. I just have a couple of questions about this. So I'm a bit confused on what the process is going to be and the dialogue specifically that the council is going to have in regards to these ordinances. I know they were kind of late to the game, so we haven't really had much conversation about this. I know one of the concerns I have these ordinances been vetted by an attorney to let us know legally, are we in compliance with state statutes? So I don't know if that's happened already, if it's going to happen moving forward, but I know for me, that's a critical piece for future conversations around.
Well, I'm going to ask our attorney to take a look at them and make sure that they do comply. If they are not in compliance, of course, we'll have to take another look at them. But the perfect way to do it would, in my mind, is that we let these lay for 30 days, bring them back, hear the public comments, perhaps let them lay another week or 2 weeks, whatever, and then consider them. By that time, we will have kind of heard everything that there is to be heard about them that we can hear, and I just don't want to rush into it. I want to spend some time with it, make sure we do it right, make sure we hear everybody that needs to be heard. And that's why I'm kind of taking my time with it, I guess. I hope that's my prerogative, but that's the way I want to do it. And I know we're going to get a lot of comments on these two ordinances. I've already got quite a bit, but it doesn't hurt anything. You need to think about what you want to do, and we need to think about our duties as council people to protect the interests of the people who are already here too. I mean, it's a two-way street. We got to think about it. We can't harm people on either side, and so we've got to really walk a tightrope to get the right kind of ordinance that we need. So, are there any other comments? Now, I am going to allow public. I know some people wish to speak on this tonight, and I'm going to allow that at the conclusion of, we got one more resolution. So there's going to be three things I'm going to entertain comments on. One is the golf carts, which I don't know what the solution to that is, but we need to hear what people are thinking. The next would be Ordinance 20-27 and Ordinance 20-26. Those three things. Okay, The next item of business is Resolution 2128, Operation of Grand Park Contracts and Agreements. This is by Troy Patton. So Troy, can you explain briefly what this resolution, this is not an ordinance, this is a resolution. So we're going to vote on this one tonight.
Okay.
Joe, Joe, are you planning to vote on this tonight?
Yes.
Well, yeah.
Then, I just saw this after the meeting started, and I didn't want to make a lot of comments publicly.
Feel free.
Quite honestly, the council can't adopt rules for Grand Park. You have no control over Grand Park. It's owned by the RDA, and it's run and leased out to the Redevelopment Commission.
Okay, Brian, this is Troy speaking. So if we're going to have this conversation, let's, in fact, the actual agreement is with the city of Westfield. It's not with the RDC.
What agreement?
The agreement with bullpen tournaments and the operation of the diamonds.
So we're just talking about bullpen? And I'm sorry to ask these questions. I didn't see this. Nobody told me anything about it.
It's actually, actually is what I was going to just explain, and it's no problem. I don't have a problem having this conversation at all. All it does is our job is to actually maintain the fiscal integrity of the city, and so all we're looking at is the operational oversight of Grand Park regarding the operation of diamonds in the fields. And so, and what we mean by the diamonds is baseball and softball, and the fields we mean by soccer. And that initial agreement that is with the Bulls and then subsequently assigned to bullpen is actually with the city of Westfield. And in fact, the money goes through went through the city of Westfield. It doesn't go through the RDC or RDA.
So you want to adopt a resolution to change the contractual relationship?
No, it actually doesn't do anything to the contractual relationship other than what we're laying out here. We're just saying that no current agreement, and I'm just reading it, as it relates to the outdoor sports at Grand Park, including diamonds and fields, will be extended past December 31, 2020, unless approved by City Council. Okay, and so that's in section 1. Because from my understanding, the agreement with bullpen is on a month-to-month agreement right now. The agreement is expired, and so it's on a month-to-month. So what we're saying is we would like to see that agreement in writing and approved by City Council. The initial agreement is through the city of Westfield. It's not through the RDA or RDC or anything like that.
No, I understand that, Troy, but my thought is it's probably going month to month until it can be negotiated with the Redevelopment Commission, because I don't think there would be an opportunity or a reason for them to contract with the city any further, because you can't control it.
Well,
you don't have control over it.
Yeah, so actually the city, the RDC and RDA is not mentioned at all in the agreement. It's
right.
Actually directly through the city of Westfield, the initial agreement.
I understand that. So you're just saying the agreements that are in place, this is what you're trying to do, even though that any future agreement won't include the city.
Well, actually, from what my understanding is, it will include the city because the payments are made by the city in control of Grand Park for whether it be lighting, turf. There is one RDC agreement with bullpen in regards to a turf agreement, but not in relation to the overall agreement. Okay. So, I mean, that's section 1. And if it's, you know, I mean, I don't, I'm not going to pretend to know the legalities of the RDC and RDA, you know, intricately.
Well, not only that, and I'm not here to tell you I know all the contracts that are out there, and one of my partners is the one who did the majority of the writing of those contracts. And this seems to fold themselves together. And I can't tell you this is going to have the impact you want it to have until I square all those things.
Yeah, well, I'd still like to bring it to a vote. Obviously, I'm going to talk about the second section here, Brian, and then, I mean, if you have any comments on that, I mean, feel free, right? But one of the things that, or that this resolution spells out is that obviously no Westfield-based team will pay any longer to use the facilities that the taxpayers have paid for in Westfield. And if you read that in section 2, okay? So it clearly says all outdoor facilities unless rented and used may be used by Westfield residents. Further, no Westfield-based team consisting of 100% Westfield residents will pay more for tournaments and/or field rental than the lesser of amount paid by any other team under common control to that of the operator of the diamonds and/or fields. Okay. And one of the things also, just to mention, Brian, because the initial agreement is with the city of Westfield, is that this resolution spells out that all payments will be made to the city in accordance with that agreement.
And I understand that. I understand where you came from this, how the contracts say the city, but for you, well, no, I don't want to say that. What I'm trying to say is, if you wanted to do something like this, it probably needed a little homework. I'm not sure that the documents that transferred the ownership of the park to the RDA and the contract, or not contract, but the lease from the RDA to the RDC included all the contracts that were in place, which would be the normal way a transaction would take place.
Yeah.
So that the city no longer is sitting in that position.
But the contract was never assigned to the RDA or RDC.
And that's it. I don't know. I'll have to take your word for that.
I consulted with an attorney, and the attorney told me that if there's nothing spelled out that says it has actually been assigned to the RDA or RDC, then it is still governed by the city.
Well, yeah, and I don't know if that has happened or not in the documents that transferred the paperwork to the RDA. And all right. And
I mean, essentially is what we're doing, Brian, is we're trying to get past the point that we have handshake agreements.
I don't think it was a handshake agreement, but you.
No, is what I'm telling you is that there's handshake agreements currently that were not taken through the RDA or RDC. It's through the city of Westfield, and we're trying to preclude that from happening in the future.
Okay. I don't know if this is the best way to go about it, but okay.
Okay. Okay, are there any other comments on this resolution?
Mr. President, this is Todd Bertrand for the record, and I would just ask on behalf of the administration that we, and Troy and I can sit down, and Scott, because it's not a new topic, to kind of comb through this a little bit more in person. I understand the urgency for a vote tonight, but there are a lot of dynamics. I know the intended outcome, and I believe I understand the motivation behind it from Councilor Patton, but it may be worthwhile to have a little bit further dialogue before it is up for your consideration.
Todd, this is Troy, and I appreciate that, and I know we've discussed this, right? I mean, in the past. I mean, and I'm not. I don't really want to get into it in full effect, but what I don't want is we say that we're going to wait 30 days and then an agreement is done without our approval. Because as you can imagine, we know that agreement could be extended or rewritten between now and the next 30 days, and then we would have no say in it when there is maybe a potential of an amount existing due to the city.
I understand, this is Zager again, I understand that concern, Troy, but I don't know if once we look into it, we'll find out that the city has no axe to grind in this, and that it was transferred for the RDA.
In accordance with an open policy of all contracts and agreements, I've read every one and asked for every one, and the agreements that I have
do not say anything about it.
Okay, but I don't know if you've seen every one. And I just don't know what I don't know. That's all I'm saying.
Okay.
And
That's fair. Well, that is what I would say is that we vote on it, and should there be some other agreement that no one seems to know about, and it comes to
no, I
light.
wouldn't say that. It's just the right person's not on this call.
Okay. Well,
This could have been cleared up pretty easily by a phone call.
We've actually had meetings about it, Brian.
I wasn't in any meeting.
I know.
So we didn't have those meetings.
Well, you weren't in the meetings, correct? I'm trying to give you the opportunity for everybody to save face here. We approve this. If it still be approved, if the other counselors don't want to approve it, then so be it. If they do, they do. But we approve it, and again, it says in section 3, it's in full force and effect. If for some reason there's parts of it that are in some kind of conflict, those parts would actually be negated, and the rest of it would stand.
Yeah, that's what I usually put on the bottom of all my resolutions. So that language is pretty boilerplate for the city.
Right.
Councilor Patton, I can appreciate the optics that maybe there'll be a rush to a consummate agreement in the next 30 days. I think we need that amount of time to kind of continue to sift through this, because outside of contracts being extended, the gate fees and questions that I raised to you and Councilor Fry about, what constitutes a team, 100% Westfield. And there are other far-reaching effects in your language here in some of these sections outside of extending contracts. And I am the person who would have certainly a knowledge of a contract being extended, and I don't have any knowledge of such other than conversation that you're well aware of. So it certainly is within the council's purview to pull a vote, but I think there's a cascading effect here with some of the language that's contained in these subsections that certainly deserve further deliberation, and the impact they'll have not only on the park's operation, but its business standing as a whole in the competitive marketplace.
Yeah.
So just consider that as you deliberate.
Todd,
I would also say, this is William, Grand Park Director, and I just want to make a point of clarification to it. There is no month-to-month agreements in place. I believe the agreement that you're referring to is still valid. Now, the clarity that Brian will have to provide related to the RDC is a whole nother conversation, but there is a valid contract in place with Bullpen for the operation of the dive.
Yeah. Well, okay. I was told by the mayor, even after my reading, that it is month to month. And in fact, we have until December 31, 2020. This doesn't change anything to preclude Bullpen from running anything at all. In fact, all it says is that we just would like to get an agreement in writing, because if we're going to go by what's in writing, then frankly, Bullpen owes the city money. I mean, if we're going to just cut to the chase, right, Todd? I mean, that's what this kind of boils down to. So we want to see something in writing. And again, I don't want to throw anybody under the bus. I'm trying to be as polite as possible. But is what I'm saying is we understand that it's a month-to-month agreement, and prior to December 31, 2020, we need to have something in writing. I mean,
this is William again, and I think if it's possible for us to have a conversation about this, I think there's some confusion on the terminology that you're using as it relates to the agreement. And I'd be more than happy to give you a call to provide some clarity as it relates to that. I know the mayor and Todd have spoke as well as I have, but there is some clarity that I think you can gain from understanding exactly how the agreement states and where we are current day.
Yeah, and William, by the way, I'd like to preface this by saying I think you're doing a fantastic job, working at Grand Park and doing everything. So this really doesn't this doesn't have any bearing upon you personally. So I'm not trying to
I'm not trying to throw you under the bus, because actually I think you've done a fantastic job running Grant Park, and so I want to make sure that I'm clear on that. Again, if because we're in a public forum here, the one thing that needs to happen is that agreements should be enforced and money should not be diverted to other organizations. And that's what's happening.
What do you mean organizations?
And we,
do you mean the RDA and the RDC?
No. So we need to make sure that these agreements are not only in writing, but they're enforced, and that the agreement stands, and that this resolution, again, everybody, each counselor is aware of this resolution. They can vote on it. They can vote no, per your comments, or they can vote yes. And then
okay, Troy.
Yeah.
Troy, this is Andy. Please
Yeah.
speak very clear. Where are funds being diverted from to? Please, and declare that.
Okay.
This
In the
might
agreement,
not be the forum.
I would agree, Scott. I mean, it's probably not, but I mean.
No. This is the very forum. You chose to bring it up.
Actually, Andy, I didn't bring it up, but all I brought up was the resolution to say that, hey, we want to look at these agreements and approve these agreements. That's what was brought up.
And that's fine. However, we were not aware. You're bringing things up that were not on the agenda, which is fine. You can do that. I want to be very clear. You just made you made an accusation about funds not going where they're supposed to go. I'd like to know, and this is the forum,
okay,
Mr. Fry. What do you mean?
Okay, Andy, this is Troy. And I appreciate your comments. I'm glad you came on. Just for the people of Westfield, and so the taxpayers know, we have an agreement with Bullpen Tournaments. Bullpen Tournaments is required to pay the city 30% of their fees to the city. They have not been doing that for the last 2 years. They have taken money approximately equivalent to what they would have paid the city in their own eyes, and actually paid it to ProX. That's where the money's gone. It's actually, as of the end of May 31st, it's about $470,000 per the financial statements that I received, I believe, this week, or what is today? Monday, last week, excuse me. So what I'm trying to do is to ensure that the taxpayers of Westfield are getting what they deserve from someone operating a facility. I think, as one city councilor maybe mentioned to me, it'd be no different than the city building a swimming pool and saying, hey, everybody that's part of this swim club that's all around the state of Indiana, you guys can use it free and anytime you want, but the people of Westfield, you're going to pay money to me to run this pool. And I'm never going to pay the city anything, but the city's going to pay for it to be built and operated and the equipment purchased. And then at the same time, we have a swim club training facility over here that's owned by me, John Doe, the operator. And by the way, instead of paying the city, we're going to pay that operator, that swimming training facility, approximately about the same money that we should have been paying to the city per our contract. That's what I'm saying, Andy. I don't think it's right, and I was trying to be discreet about it and get this resolution passed so that we could move forward.
No, there's no need
Troy,
to be
I want to
discreet.
just make another point of clarification.
Whoa. Andy's still speaking.
Oh, sorry, go ahead, Mayor.
Troy, if you believe that funds are being misappropriated, then I would suggest we need to have a full-blown audit, and let's figure out exactly what's going on.
Well, not only that, Troy, if you thought these contracts were in place and the city wasn't collecting on them, that's just an issue of contract enforcement. I should have been notified so I can enforce the contract and make sure the money that's laid out is being paid to the city.
Andy, well, maybe you can answer that for Brian. Per the written agreement, have they paid the city what's owed in the agreement?
Are you asking me, Brian Zager?
Troy,
I'm asking Andy.
Okay.
Well, Troy, I can't answer that question. When you spring this kind of...
You told me that no, they're not.
No, sir, I did not. You are springing a very complicated matter upon me and our people with absolutely no respect to give us notice what your concerns are. We will be glad to address all these concerns publicly, but give us a little bit of notice of what you're thinking. I had no idea you were going to even discuss this tonight among 2 or 3 other things for which we have an agenda. But if we're not aware of, as you well know, I try to meet with every one of you counselors every month to hear what your concerns are. You, Troy, are the only counselor who said to me, we don't need to meet every week to talk. Apparently we do, and I'll be glad to go over these issues.
Andy, I appreciate your concerns. I mean, we meet when we have something to meet about, just as we met out at Bullpen. And I've met with your team on budgets, and I've voiced my concerns about this several times. So at that point, I mean, unless, if there's any other city councilors that have any comments, I'd welcome that. If not, I'd like to put it to a vote. And if it goes down, then it goes down.
This is Cindy Spoljaric. I have something on a different matter, and it would be I think just striking a sentence right now. And while I understand what you're trying to achieve, I'm concerned that it would actually be very problematic for William in terms of maintaining the facility. And it's the sentence in section 2 that says all outdoor facilities unless rented and in use may be used by Westfield residents. I think we could find a way to achieve that, but with different wording. And I'm sorry I didn't bring that up before, but I just realized there's going to be some unintended consequences.
Okay, any other counselors have anything to say?
This is Scott Willis. I just would like to hear William Knox's comments. I think he was going to get ready to answer something, and he didn't get a chance to speak. I'm just curious on his comments around this contract issue.
Mr. Knox?
I'm sorry?
Yeah, William, this is Scott Willis. I think you're getting ready to answer one of Troy's questions around the contract. I'm just curious if you had any additional information on this.
No, and again, I think this is definitely a conversation for a different time, but there are services being rendered by Bullpen Tournaments that is not encapsulated within the original agreement, and that is part of the reason that they are not paying the percentage of the gate fee. So there is no funds being diverted. We are in the process of working on an update to their agreement to fully clarify the shift in the financial model, and that's where we are today. And I'm probably the best person to answer that because I was working with them to get that taken care of.
Well, William, this is Andy. Yes, you're wrong. This is the agenda to discuss it. So fully discuss with us where you are with Bullpen so that everybody can understand why we have the most successful sports park in America because of our agility and our way to work with our stakeholders. Explain that.
Yes, sir. So essentially what in the original agreement, the Bullpen Tournaments were responsible for paying the city the sum of a percentage of their gate fee. We were in the process of working with Bullpen to clean up that operation altogether. And at a time, about a little over a year ago, decided Bullpen would incur the full cost of maintaining the diamond side of the complex, which the city was paying originally. That, in exchange for them taking over that contractual obligation to the tune of, and please don't quote me to this, but I think it was north of $500,000 or $600,000 just for that side of the park, they were able to capture 100% of their gate revenue.
Any other counselors have anything to say?
I would like to thank Troy for the work he's done on this, and again, Todd and William. I know there've been a lot of meetings, a lot of conversations about this, and a lot of this information's been requested in the past. A lot of information is can be hard to get put together. So Troy, I appreciate the intent of this for sure, and the work that you've done on this.
This is Joe, excuse me, Joe Edwards. I might suggest one thing in addition to this, is that we're kind of skirting around the edges here. I think we need a full audit of Grand Park to kind of set some of these facts aside or see what is what and to see what's going on. Actually, it's owned by or operated by the Redevelopment Commission, maybe owned by them or by the Redevelopment Authority. But be that as it may, it's still city money, and it has to be operated in accordance with business standards and business practices. I don't know that it is or it isn't, but I would like to have an independent audit of the operation of Grand Park. And I think that will put these things to rest. I mean, we need somebody that is experienced in auditing public, quasi-public things. And we need to do it without a lot of fanfare, I think, and just be satisfied with the results that a public audit could give us. I don't think that anybody in management would question that, really. If it's a good thing, if it is successful, it will manifest itself in the results. And I just think that's where we need to go to settle these questions. That's my opinion.
Yeah, Joe, this is Troy. I don't think that's a bad idea. I mean, I think Andy even offered that up. I think, that's something we can do down the road. There's certain things that an audit it's not going to address certain issues such as this possibly. Unless we have some kind of policies or procedures or some kind of agreed upon procedures. And I think that's where, unfortunately, I don't even think this resolution is that threatening. In fact, I think it's pretty numb. All it says is that, we'd like an agreement in writing prior to December 31, 2020, approved by the city council. I really don't think that's that big of a deal. I think the section 2, and Cindy, by the way, I appreciate that your concern on the facilities and use by Westfield residents, and that's something that obviously we'd have to work out with the purveyors of the diamonds and fields, and I don't think that would be that difficult. But I would like to just leave it with this one comment, that as a taxpayer, it is concerning that someone, whether it be myself or any other Tom, Dick, or Sally, has paid taxes for the building of Grand Park. And by the way, I do like Grand Park, Andy. I think Grand Park it's good, and I actually think Bullpen runs the tournaments well out there. But at the same time, it's interesting that I, as a Westfield resident, have to pay to get in to Grand Park, even though I already paid taxes, and yet other folks who aren't Westfield residents, or because they participate with a certain team, don't have to pay certain amounts of money to get into Grand Park. It's like I'm being double dipped twice. I don't think that's correct. This resolution doesn't really address that, but it does address the fact that we want to approve the agreements. And it really isn't that choking on anybody. It's actually fairly numb. All it is pretty straightforward and just says, hey, we want to review these agreements, and we want the Westfield residents to be able to use Grand Park as necessary, and frankly, pay the same amount that people that don't live in Westfield pay. That's all it says.
Troy, let me ask you a question. Troy, this is Andy. Have you ever been to a Colts game?
I have.
Have you been to an Indians game, a Pacers game, an Indy 11 game? Do you walk in free because we pay an innkeeper's tax that goes down there? Do you go in there for free?
I do not. I actually pay to get my ticket.
Okay.
Because I'm watching professionals who are also paid on the whether it be on the field or wherever it may be.
But
and the difference there, if I may jump in, the difference there in your comparison is that no one from Fort Wayne or Kokomo comes in and goes in for free.
Gentlemen, and I'll make one more point now. I'll shut up for the rest of the call. But Troy, from the latter part of the resolution would have some significant operational impacts for us. And if nothing else, if we could pause on that section alone, I'm not sure what happens on the Diamond side of the complex. I'm not privy to their operational plan. But I know on the field sports side of the complex, we would have to really go in and retool our operations to accommodate that.
Okay. I actually don't think it's that difficult for somebody to show a ID saying that they're a Westfield resident. I do understand there's some people with Carmel, some people with Noblesville. I mean, something like that would have to be, taken into account. But I don't think that'd be that tough of a fix. But, I mean.
Just by the way we currently have our operation structure, it would definitely impact us. And I'm not sure from the other standpoints, liability-wise, anybody who currently plays on any of our fields sign liability waivers or are covered by way of their contract. So that's a whole nother part of the conversation. But it would just take us a little time to retool the operation. That's all I'm saying.
Okay.
All right. Well, we've got a resolution before us. Troy, are you still wanting to go forward with this?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to pass resolution, excuse me, trying to get to my page here. Resolution 20-128.
Yeah. Is there a second?
It's Mike Johns, I second it.
Okay. Motion properly made and seconded. We've had lots of discussion. I'm going to call for the roll. Sydney, will you call the roll?
Okay, Scott Fry,
Yes.
Troy Patton,
Yes.
Mike Johns,
Yes.
Cindy Spalgeri.
A quick point of order. I had that amendment, and I guess we didn't consider the amendment to take out that all outdoor facilities unless rented and in use may be used by Westfield residents. I was hoping to get that taken out. That wasn't in a motion, so I guess it's not, correct?
It is not.
It is not.
I think you can make the motion to amend.
Not now.
Not now?
No,
Okay.
it was made and seconded. The vote's going.
So.
Can I abstain then?
You can.
Yeah.
Sure.
I don't want to because I agree with everything we're trying to do. I'm just concerned about how we're going to manage the public with the fields.
Okay.
Joe Edwards,
Yes.
Jake Gilbert,
Yes.
Scott Willis,
No, and the reason I'm gonna vote no, to be honest with you here, I feel like I owe an explanation. I like what we're trying to do in this resolution, but based on the last two ordinances that came before us that I think were deeply flawed and not properly vetted by an attorney before it came to the public, I do have some concerns on language in section 3, and because of that, I feel like we're putting some things on the city that just hasn't properly been vetted. So because of that, I'm going to vote no.
Scott, this is Zager just jumping in section 3, that's a paragraph I put in almost every resolution. I wouldn't have any reservations with that being part of whatever resolution's being adopted, if that helps you at all.
Okay, so I was under the impression that William Knox had issues with section 3 and the impacts it had on his operation.
That may be section 2. Section 3 is the one about the full force and effect.
Correct. Okay, maybe I misunderstood. All right, I'll vote yes then based on that comment.
Okay. Motion carries 6-1 with 1 abstain.
Okay. I also mentioned, I don't know whether this is the time for it or not, but I think we need to begin to consider an audit of Grand Park. I mean, it's just good business practice. All businesses successful and less than successful do it, and I think that we need to do it with Grand Park also. So I'm not going to ask for the question on that tonight, but I probably will the next meeting. We do need to explore where we're going financially with this and get some answers from an independent analyst, both financial and for business practices. So I'm going to call for that audit the next meeting. Okay, the next thing that we need to do is we've had an issue. I've got several emails. Cindy has got several. I know all of you have too, about golf carts and their use upon trails and streets. Is there anybody out there now? The people that are going to speak, if there's anybody out there to speak, excuse me, we're going to hold you to a 3-minute time frame. So is there anybody out there who wants to speak about golf carts, pro or con?
Councilor Edwards, this is Jeremy Lawler, Director of Public Works. I would just like to highlight a couple things which may kick off the conversation with the other folks that would like to speak. We do have a golf cart ordinance. There's been a golf cart ordinance in place for a number of years.
I'm sorry about that then.
Yeah, that's quite all right. It was most recently amended in 18, which is when we expanded the plan to allow phase 1 of allowing golf carts on the Midland Trail. So in that ordinance, it allows, so the ordinance has always allowed golf carts, if registered and permitted through the Westfield Police Department, to travel on roads that were under 25 miles per hour. Because there were a number of communities that were trying to access amenities like Bridgewater Club, like downtown, things like that, and could not do so because of speed limit restrictions as well as other things. They weren't allowed to, say, go from Oak Manor over to Bridgewater to use their private club membership in their golf cart. So when we expanded last year, we included right-of-way trails, so pedestrian trails in the right-of-way, as well as a designated section of the Midland Trail, specifically from Cary Road at the Midland to downtown, which would allow folks to visit our restaurants and in Grand Junction Plaza and our downtown events via golf cart. So that's just to give a little context, and I'm happy to. I was heavily involved, obviously, in that process, as well as PD and others. So I can answer questions.
Well, apparently this is an issue that is apparently on some people's some people's minds, and I do want to hear public input on it. We're getting some written input, which I'm printing off, but is there anybody out there who wishes to speak on golf carts tonight? Hearing none, go ahead.
Mr. President, this is Kevin Todd. I just want to jump in. We've received 2 emails, and I forwarded them to the council that used our email address for receiving public comment. I mean, I'm happy to read them. I don't know how these people would be on this call.
Okay.
So I'm happy to read them if that would be helpful. Otherwise, they should be in your inbox.
Okay. Would you do that, Kevin? They're not real long, are they?
No, they're short. They're both pretty
Okay.
short.
Would you announce who the sender is and what their wish is?
Yep. The first one is from Terry Kimpel, Kimpel. Says, hello, I plan on attending the Westfield City Council meeting on July 13th. I have concerns regarding the golf carts being allowed on the trail. And then the question, am I allowed to voice my concerns or ask questions regarding the test? If so, I'd like to be added to the agenda. So that's the first one. And then the second one from Ken Tucker says, good evening. How do I fill out a card for tonight? I've spoken with a few city council representatives and they have forwarded my request on, but I haven't heard back. And the title of this email is Golf Cart Route Findings. If in attendance virtually, is there a card or a call out to audience as like an in-person meeting? Thanks for your time.
Okay.
So,
Todd, I'm sorry, this is Scott Fry. Could you, who was that from again?
Ken Tucker, Tucker.
Okay. Very good. Thank you.
And
Okay.
that's all that we've received.
Is there any other golf cart comments? I'm gonna switch. Go ahead.
This is Steve Hinkie.
Steve, go ahead.
Yeah, how you doing?
Good.
Good. Yeah, I'm just checking to see. I'm not sure what the resolution is, or is it the resolution to change the golf cart ordinance? Obviously, I'm concerned in regards to Chatham Hills.
There's nothing.
Sorry, I don't have it in front of me.
There's nothing on tap. We're just hearing comments now and trying to get a feel for what people think.
Okay, so there's nothing being voted on, or no
No.
resolutions on that right now? Okay, all right. I will be glad to sit down with you or any of the members of the council to discuss Chatham Hills usage and so forth at any point in time.
Okay, thanks, Steve. Okay, golf cart is over. The next one, is there anybody who wishes to speak to ordinance 20-26, transparency related to campaign contributions?
President Edwards, Bert Stolten, I'd like to speak to 2026 and 2027.
Okay, Birch, go ahead.
And just the quick review of them as they hit the docket today, or the agenda, which I think if you're doing ordinances, you might as well do an ordinance that we ought to set an agenda at least, a couple, 3 days ahead of this, so everybody knows what's going to happen so they can attend the meeting. But on 26, the concern is the retroactive. If somebody's donated to a campaign, which I have, to many of them, I think you're kind of impugning the integrity of the council person, number one, by this. Two, I think there's already election laws out there that we can go to. But I appreciate you tabling that so we can send more formal responses. On 2027, I have many PUDs, EDROC does. I don't know if this ordinance, I hadn't had a chance to review it in detail, but I think anything retroactive is punitive, and people buy and sell ground based on the zoning entitlement, and if it's taken away after they've spent the money on it, I don't think it's fair. Now, going forward on planned unit developments, it's probably a pretty good idea to have some kind of time limit. I think that's good creative thinking. However, you need to take into account the magnitude and the complexity of a PUD and the multi-phasing of a PUD, if it's multi-use. I mean, many developments take several years to develop after the zoning for financing, users, a lot of different reasons, and putting a time limit of 3 years is probably too limiting, especially on bigger ones. Now, you know, a one-off ground, one use, like a gas station going on 1 acre, yeah, if they can't get it done in 3 years, I get it. But 150, 200 acre deal with 5 or 6 different major users and so forth, I would just counsel that, you know, as you look at that sunset clause on new PUDs, that you have flexibility based on, you know, that particular PUD. But anything retroactive, whether it's 1 day or 50 years, I think is punitive. And quite frankly, I think the right of zoning runs the land, and you just can't pull a man's zoning or a person's zoning. So with that said, I'll make further comments to people here between now and August 10th. Thank you, President.
Okay, Birch, thank you. Anybody else wish to comment? Karen, are you out there?
Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay, good. My first question is, well, first of all, there was no transparency in this PUD. We didn't know it except by accident as of yesterday. And my understanding is that it has changed today. So when it was introduced, it sounded as though there were only 2 sections, and I didn't hear any comment about what happens to PUDs that were older than 7 years. So I would like to know what is happening to those that are older than 7 years, because that includes us.
Okay.
And I don't know if they know who I am, but I'm with Ackerson PUD.
Okay. Is that all you have?
Well, I have a letter that I could read to you, but I thought if I got the answer to this one, I might not need to read it to you at this moment. So I would appreciate whoever proposed the PUD, I would appreciate their letting me know in their new version, which I've never seen yet, what they plan to do with people who have PUDs that are older than 7 years. And then I may want to read the letter that I have to you.
Okay. That's why I kind of turn your yeah, there you go. Turn your audio off. It is best. Well, I guess we didn't have it. Just give me a call, Karen, and I'll direct you to the person that you need to talk to.
Joe, do you want me to address it?
Go ahead.
I would like an answer, yes.
I'm still getting a ton of feedback here as well, so people can hear me okay. So,
Chris, if you could turn your audio off, and then that way Scott can reply.
All right, are we there?
Yeah.
Perfect, okay. So, first of all, thank you for your input, and I would like to say that whatever information you received yesterday, it's curious to me as how you would have received that information, and I apologize because the information you received would at best been a draft or speculation as to what was being put out there, because this was not in the format that it's in today, and it wasn't ready for public consumption. So I apologize for any confusion that was created there. As far as the ordinance itself, we're basically trying to focus on new PUDs and setting a time frame for those. Quite frankly, it's a little bit of a working document in that we're looking for input. We're looking for feedback as to what we can do with some of the ones that are existing that might be older than 7 years. So that's where legal counsel is going to come in, and we're going to try to figure out what we can do.
Okay, maybe you would like to hear my letter.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Okay, my letter was written today because I was very disappointed in the lack of transparency on a major rezoning issue that was coming before the council today. Only by accident did we know about this, and my understanding is Our farm, the PUD of Atchison Family Farm, is one of the existing PUDs that would be most impacted. Our family has lived in this community for nearly 100 years. We have owned the farm for over 115 years. My father, my brother, and I all graduated from Westfield High School. We have loved this community, respected it, and appreciated it. But when development began coming closer from the south, and much of the land to our east, north, and west began the process of development, we realized that we had an island in the middle that would not be suitable for farming in the future. That was verified to us this year when we tried to rent our farmland, and at least one of the people that we thought was interested said they were afraid to come across State Road 32 and didn't want to bring their heavy equipment down Ditch Road. I'm sure that's going to be worse as days proceed. When we began a 2-year process of developing a PUD for our property, we met with neighbors, with the planning commissions, with architects, with city officials for that entire 2+ years to create a plan that would transition from business that was likely on State Road 32 to larger lots that were likely at the very south end of our land. We wanted a community that would contribute to the city of Westfield and be a quality neighborhood for its citizens. Our plan was forward-looking with the intent that it would provide a variety of amenities, services, and housing options for residents of many ages. We did not develop immediately because the 2008 recession caused a major slowdown in development. After the city built Grand Park, which was developed further north, the small amount of development that occurred after that was just near our property, near 32, was not of the level of quality we had in mind. We wanted to wait until we could develop the quality that we had planned. More recently, we spoke with a number of developers, but we were patiently waiting for the right market and the right quality building partner. When we spoke to Paul Estridge, we found a fit with the family and community-oriented concept we were pursuing. We were also especially happy to work with the local builder. To see some in the city council attempt to undo this project just at the moment it was beginning was very disappointing and to the detriment of the city and potential residents that could have had an outstanding community to call home. We certainly hope that you give much further study to a proposal of this magnitude and its effect on the city as well as the landowners and future residents. Undoing a quality project appears to be a poor solution. So my last statement, I really hope you pay attention to because I think it would be very poor to jump into that very quickly.
So again, I would thank you for your comments, Jason. I would tell you under no circumstances is the intent to undo anything that you've gotten motion progress. And again, I would remind you that whatever source you have for the information that provided to you yesterday probably just not a character spouse. I apologize for that confusion.
Thank you.
Okay. Are there any other people to comment?
Mr. President, Matt Skelton here.
Matt?
I'm maybe echoing a little bit here. Just a couple of points that I might offer. I'm speaking on behalf of Gershman Partners this evening, but I thought I would just share a couple of observations as well. I think in reading the ordinance, it would be helpful if it was clear enough to know what portions of the UDO are proposed to change. And I just couldn't tell by reading the ordinance that I'm looking at right now. And secondly, I'm not exactly sure that the policy result that would be achieved by this is, it should probably be evaluated a little bit. My suggestion, I think there has been value in many jurisdictions of being able to see development beyond 3 years from now. And so there may be instances where it makes sense to have a development horizon longer than 3 years without having to come back and ask for permission to continue developing. And then lastly, just on behalf of Gershman Partners, I'm not sure, I haven't been able to spend a lot of time on this, but I'm not sure how the proposed ordinance applies to my clients' projects, but they have made significant investments in time and resources in furtherance of marketing and developing a couple of significant pieces of property in Westfield. And for that reason, they have investment-backed expectations based on the approvals that exist today. And they've been continuing to make investments in reliance on those approvals. So this, I'm not sure if commercial developments were were the target of this ordinance, but it would have a significant impact on them. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thanks, Matt. Anybody else to speak to this ordinance?
Linda Nath,
Linda, go ahead.
can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, I didn't realize anyone had access to this because I just did a few minutes ago. But what I want to say is perhaps there should be a public hearing. Interesting that we're hearing from a lot of developers, and I do understand the Ackerson because I was through all the APC meetings and public hearings when that came forth, and it's a good project. But I think we need to do something to where some of us residents are feeling like huge acreages are being zoned, and I'm not referring to Ackerson here, okay? Someone's coming in, getting a rezone on this, and then we see nothing happening. And it is affecting the next person who wants to do something or someone who is just living their life in their home. Other cities do have these, and the fact that you've added in here, there's a phrase for an extension, and I also think this gives the new council and the new community development director an opportunity and a catalyst to sit down and look at what we have zoned as PUDs, what we have coming, and then make some decisions on these. I think it'd be good for all of us to know where things are going, because I was around in the early 2000s when we approved everything, and some of that stuff still hasn't happened, and some of it changed, and some of it changed ownership, and there were lots of changes. But other people who came in and built their homes or bought in a certain development didn't realize some of the changes that were going to happen, that have happened, and still there's some things that are up in the air. So I think if this is the catalyst, which it could be, to review what we have out there, I think that's very good. I do clearly understand what the Ackerson property is saying, because you can get surrounded and swallowed up and you have no idea what's going on. But just to rezone for the purpose of rezoning for control, I don't think that's good. I think there needs to be a plan and it needs to be carried out. So I'm certainly willing and wanting to listen to other people. I hope there's other people and residents who got this information somehow, as it appears developers did, or the representatives. Thank you.
Okay, I think they will. I mean, I think the word will get around, and I do want to entertain a lot of public comment at the August meeting. We need to shape the ordinance if it's going to pass in a way that enhances the community and not holds us back. Is there anybody else that wishes to speak to this ordinance?
Yes, good evening. This is Peter Ackerson on behalf of my father, Nels Ackerson, and my Aunt Karen spoke earlier. I just wanted to echo everything she said, and I appreciate the consideration here. I think for us, it's unsettling and frustrating to feel like these fairly significant and complex issues are sort of sprung overnight. And so I would just encourage everybody here to not only solicit public comment on behalf of people whose houses and property values and farms are going to be impacted by this, but also, really the process here matters. And I think particularly in light of the fact that everything is being done online, and it's already difficult for everybody because of shifting work schedules and family schedules and job situations to make an effort. I think it's particularly important that this process be public and thoughtful and researched, so that it fits into a broader plan for the continued, success of the Westfield community, where our family has been for over 100 years.
Thank you, Peter. Is there anybody else? Not hearing anybody. Is there anybody on the city council who wants to comment?
Well, this is Cindy. And I actually had a number of comments, but what I think needs to happen is this needs to move forward to be discussed. You know, this is a starting point. We didn't have anything, and this gives us something.
Right.
So it provides that framework. So people, please keep that in mind. We wouldn't be the first community doing this, you know, and having a sunset clause. And so that's important to remember too. We'll be looking at this, I'm sure, with staff, with APC, how it fits into everything, what's the best way to handle it. Contact me anytime. I'd love to talk to anybody about it. So feel free, and thank you.
Any other council members have any comments?
Yeah, Joe, this is Scott Willis. You know, the comment that I'll make, I'm a bit frustrated as well that we have ordinances popping on at the hour that we're popping on. I know you and I talked about it, Joe, offline today, but I think a public statement has to be made that, you know, I think we all ran on a platform of transparency. I know we all want to be transparent in what we do, and certainly not accusing anybody of trying to not be transparent, but I don't, especially these types of earth-shattering ordinances. You know, we use this term in the Marine Corps. Your lack of preparation doesn't constitute an emergency on my part. And I kind of feel like this falls into that. Like, we're pushing it out when it didn't have to be pushed out this meeting. I really do think we need to hold ourselves more accountable to having these ordinances posted with proper notice to the public so that the Linda Nasses of the world and also the Ackersons of the world have an opportunity to have their voices heard and be engaged in this process. So I'd like to see us stop this last minute ordinance stuff. I think it just creates a friction that is not needed. And that's all I have to say.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay, I see the last item on there is mayor comments. Mayor?
I have nothing further to add. Thank you.
Okay. Well, with that, the meeting is concluded. Thank you.